Star Trek just cleverly reversed the TNG episode that inspired Lower Decks. Star Trek Lower Decks just cleverly reversed the Star Trek The Next Generation episode that inspired it. As Star Trek Lower Decks' fifth and final season on Paramount Plus nears the finish line, the crew of the USS Cerritos takes a break from its current mission of closing fissures in space that lead to alternate Star Trek timelines. Star Trek Lower Decks' episodic format allows Season 5, Episode 8, Upper Decks to be a one-off that flips Star Trek The Next Generation Season 7's Lower Decks. The first half-hour animated Star Trek comedy series, Star Trek Lower Decks, is also the heir to Star Trek The Next Generation's popular 24th Century era. Star Trek Lower Decks picks up a year after Star Trek Nemesis ends, and the USS Cerritos voyages in the wake of the events of TNG, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Star Trek Voyager. One of Lower Decks' distinctive calling cards is how lovingly the show and Star Trek Lower Decks' characters reference the breadth of the Star Trek franchise that came before it. But Lower Decks is also a purposeful and ingenious reversal of Star Trek's classic format. Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 8, Upper Decks, brilliantly reversed the format of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 7, Episode 15, Lower Decks. Amusingly, by doing so, Star Trek Lower Decks became like Star Trek The Next Generation for one episode. By focusing on the bridge crew of the USS Cerritos, Upper Decks proved Lieutenant Beckett Mariner, Tawny Newsome, wrong that nothing exciting happens to the Cerritos' senior officers. The USS Cerritos' bridge crew certainly live exciting lives. Captain Carol Freeman Dawn Lewis balanced her daily appointments with her crew to repel an insectoid alien takeover of the Cerritos. Commander Jack Ransom Jerry O'Connell used offbeat means to get a group of ensigns to work together. Dr. Tana Gillian Vigman learned a lesson about her pain tolerance versus the crew's life. Commander Andy Billups Paul Scheer solved a crisis in engineering, and LT. Shaxs Fred Tautasturi faced his own traumatic past against the Cardassians. In truth, exciting things happen to the USS Cerritos' bridge crew all the time on Star Trek Lower Decks, but the show's format centered on the junior officers like Mariner LT. Bradward Boimler, Jack Quaid, and their friends. Still, Star Trek Lower Decks' senior officers have regularly faced their share of dangers. Captain Freeman has gone on secret missions and was even framed by the Paykolds LT. Shaxs died and was resurrected, and Commander Ransom was turned into a powerful psychic being by strange energies. Star Trek The Next Generation's Lower Decks breaking the show's format is one of the reasons why it's so memorable. Shifting the focus to a group of junior officers on the USS Enterprise D was a breath of fresh air that let audiences see the bridge crew like Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, Commander William Riker, Jonathan Frakes, and LT. Worf Michael Dorn the way their subordinates see them. Lower Decks was also an early proof of concept that Star Trek is interesting, even if it tells the stories of lesser-known Starfleet characters. Star Trek is known for its ability to tell captivating stories that transcend time, space, and even genre. One such story that has remained influential over the years is the Next Generation TNG episode Lower Decks, an episode that served as a deep dive into the lives of Starfleet officers who operate outside the main command crew. Now, in a brilliant act of creative storytelling, Star Trek has cleverly reversed the themes of this iconic episode in its own animated series, Star Trek Lower Decks. The legacy of TNG's Lower Decks first airing in 1994, TNG's Lower Decks was a unique episode that shifted focus away from the usual bridge crew and onto a handful of junior officers on the USS Enterprise. This episode stood out for its empathetic portrayal of lesser-known crew members, a perspective rarely explored in the Star Trek universe. Typically, The Next Generation revolved around Captain Picard, Commander Riker, Data, and the other senior officers, but in Lower Decks, the spotlight fell on Ensign Sito Jaxa and her fellow ensigns as they navigated the complexities of life aboard a starship. The episode offered a deeply human story about personal ambition, friendship, and sacrifice. One of the most compelling aspects of the episode was its examination of the hierarchy aboard Starfleet vessels, how decisions made by the senior officers, though often in the best interest of the mission, could deeply affect the lives and careers of those further down the chain of command. Ensign Cito's tragic death, a result of a covert mission that was ordered by senior officers, left an indelible mark on both the characters and the audience. It was a grim reminder of the cost of duty, seen through the eyes of those who weren't in control of their fates, but who believed in Starfleet's greater mission. The episode was celebrated for its introspective tone and nuanced characterization, and it laid the groundwork for more stories that explored the daily lives of non-bridge crew members. This concept was later revived and expanded upon in the animated series Star Trek Lower Decks, but with a major twist. The reversal in Star Trek Lower Decks, created by Mike McMahon, is a comedic and irreverent take on the life of lower-ranking Starfleet officers aboard the USS Cerritos, a ship specializing in second contact missions. From the outset, the show is a stark departure from the serious and dramatic tone of TNG's Lower Decks. Instead of focusing on life or death decisions or tragic sacrifices, Lower Decks injects humor, chaos, and a certain carefree energy into the Star Trek universe. Yet, it does so while cleverly paying homage to the very themes that defined its predecessor. Where TNG's Lower Decks explored the burdens and consequences of responsibility for junior officers, Star Trek Lower Decks flips the script by showing how these same officers managed to thrive in a Starfleet that is far from the utopian vision seen in the more heroic and polished perspectives of previous series. The central characters, Ensigns Mariner, Boimler, Rutherford, and Tendi, may still be part of the lower ranks, but they are often more in control of their destinies than their senior officers. This reversal comes with significant thematic weight. In Lower Decks, the junior officers are not just at the mercy of command decisions. They often outshine their superiors in wit, competence, and problem-solving. Mariner, for example, repeatedly demonstrates a level of skill and ingenuity that rivals that of any captain, all while actively avoiding promotion. Boimler, on the other hand, represents the eager, rule-following side of Starfleet's junior officers, but his constant bumbling serves as a reminder that being in command is not necessarily the end-all goal for everyone. The comedy and subversion of expectations in Lower Decks allow the series to explore what life in Starfleet can be like when not viewed through the lens of command. It also explores themes of camaraderie, ambition, and personal fulfillment, without the grim undertones present in TNG's Lower Decks. While Ensign Cito Jaxa faced a tragic end in TNG's Lower Decks, the characters in Star Trek Lower Decks are allowed to find meaning in their roles without having to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. This optimistic reversal adds an extra layer of richness to the Star Trek universe, showing that while not everyone may be a captain or commander, their contributions are no less valuable. A playful reflection on the original what makes Star Trek Lower Decks such a clever reversal is its awareness of the original themes in TNG's Lower Decks. The series often pokes fun at Starfleet's more serious aspects, turning familiar tropes on their head while still retaining the core values of exploration, curiosity, and friendship. By doing this, the show invites both new viewers and longtime fans to appreciate the versatility of the Star Trek franchise. Where TNG's Lower Decks evokes sympathy for the sacrifices made by junior officers, Star Trek Lower Decks offers a more hopeful, if irreverent, view of those who live and work outside the limelight. Rather than focusing on tragic loss, it celebrates the joys and challenges of working in Starfleet's lesser-seen areas, giving the lower ranks agency, humor, and purpose in a way that wasn't possible in earlier iterations. In essence, Star Trek Lower Decks has taken the original themes of TNG's Lower Decks and turned them on their head,